Imagine walking into a room where you meet someone who seems to understand you better than anyone has in years. They remember the small details you mentioned once. They seem invested in your success. They make you feel chosen, special, even unique. But here's where it gets dangerous. You have no idea you're being studied like a character in a play they've already written. You're not experiencing connection. You're experiencing a system. And by the end of this video, you'll recognize the 7 psychological tricks that manipulators are using on you right now, maybe without you even knowing it. Dark psychology isn't a disorder. It isn't a disease. It's a toolkit, a collection of psychological techniques that some people use to influence, control, and manipulate others for personal gain. And here's the thing, understanding it isn't about becoming cynical. It's about becoming aware. Psychologists have studied manipulative behavior for decades. What they've found is that manipulation works not because manipulators are smarter than you, but because they understand how your mind works better than you do. They know which emotional buttons to push. They know when you're tired, when you're vulnerable, when your defenses are down. They exploit what researchers call cognitive shortcuts, the mental rules of thumb your brain uses to make quick decisions when you're under pressure. The 7 tricks we're exploring today aren't rare. They're common. They're happening in relationships, workplaces, families, and friendships. And once you know them, you can't unsee them. The first trick is called the charm offensive, or in modern psychology, love bombing. Here's how it works. A manipulator floods you with attention, compliments, and affection at an unusual intensity. They text you constantly. They remember everything you say. They seem almost impossibly available. And your brain does exactly what it's designed to do. It interprets this as safety, connection, and belonging. But this is strategic. Manipulators use the first few weeks or months to create an emotional debt. You begin to feel obligated. You begin to believe this person truly sees you. Once that foundation is set, once you're emotionally invested, the intensity gradually decreases. But by then, you've already rationalized the change. You blame yourself. You work harder to regain their attention. You've become invested in keeping them happy. Researchers call this the commitment and consistency principle. Once you've committed emotionally to someone, you'll perform remarkable mental gymnastics to stay consistent with that belief, even when the evidence changes. Now here's where it gets fascinating. The second trick is gaslighting, the art of making someone question their own reality. A gaslighter will deny things that absolutely happened. I never said that. You're remembering it wrong. You're too sensitive. They reframe your legitimate concerns as personal flaws. And the psychological mechanism behind this is brutal. When someone you trust contradicts your memory repeatedly, your brain faces a conflict. It has 2 sources of information, your own experience and the testimony of someone you've emotionally invested in. Most people, when faced with this conflict over time, begin to doubt their own perception. It's not weakness. It's how human memory actually works. We're not recording devices, we're meaning-making machines. We reconstruct memories based on current information. If someone we trust consistently contradicts our memory, we eventually defer to their version. This is why gaslighting is so insidious. It doesn't just manipulate your behavior. It manipulates your sense of reality itself. The third trick borrows directly from behavioral psychology, and it's devastatingly effective. It's called intermittent reinforcement, and if you've ever felt addicted to someone's attention, this is why. Here's the pattern: a manipulator is sometimes wonderful and sometimes withdrawn. Sometimes they're affectionate, sometimes they're cold. But the crucial detail is that you never know when the switch will flip. This unpredictability creates a psychological state similar to addiction. Your brain releases dopamine not when you receive the reward, but when you anticipate it. Slot machines work on this principle. Abusive relationships work on this principle. Researchers have shown that intermittent rewards are more psychologically powerful than consistent ones. Why? Because your brain is hardwired to pursue uncertain outcomes more intensely than certain ones. If someone is always kind to you, you relax. But if they're sometimes kind and sometimes distant, you become obsessed with figuring out the pattern. You constantly monitor their mood. You modify your behavior to predict and control the reward. You've become a trained animal responding to their schedule. The fourth trick is isolation. A manipulator systematically cuts you off from your support network, your friends, your family, your colleagues. They do this gradually, subtly. They make casual criticisms: your friend Sarah seems flaky. Your family never really understood you. I think you're spending too much time at the gym. Each comment is small, deniable. But the cumulative effect is that you begin to see your network through a filter of doubt. You spend less time with people who know you well. And as you spend more time with the manipulator and less time with others, your perspective narrows. You no longer have external reference points. You no longer have people telling you, wait, that doesn't sound normal. You're left with a single voice confirming your reality. This is textbook dependency creation. By the time you realize what's happened, the manipulator has become your primary source of validation, information, and emotional support. You're isolated not physically, but psychologically. The fifth trick is blame shifting. When a manipulator is confronted with their behavior, they do not accept responsibility. Instead, they flip the script. They make it about your sensitivity, your neediness, your unreasonableness. The psychological mechanism here is called projection. It's a defense mechanism where we attribute our own unwanted traits to others. A person who is unfaithful accuses their partner of infidelity. A person who is manipulative accuses others of being manipulative. Why? Because it's easier for the mind to accept criticism of others than it is to accept criticism of ourselves. But here's the brutal part: manipulators are often excellent at identifying your insecurities. They know which criticisms will stick. They know that if they accuse you of being too needy, it'll activate your fear of being burdened. If they say you're being irrational, it'll activate your fear of being out of control. They turn your own psychology against you. By the end of the argument, you're defending yourself instead of addressing their behavior. The original problem is completely forgotten. The sixth trick is triangulation. A manipulator introduces a third person into the dynamic, a rival, a competitor, a comparison point. They might mention an ex-partner frequently. They might flirt with someone else in front of you. They might praise someone else's qualities in exaggerated ways. The purpose is psychological leverage. By making you compete for their attention, they activate your scarcity mindset. Your brain perceives the manipulator as a limited resource that others are trying to obtain. This perception triggers what researchers call loss aversion, the tendency to care more about losing something than gaining it. You suddenly care more about keeping the manipulator's attention than you did before. This trick is particularly effective because it's often deniable. I was just mentioning an old friend. I didn't mean anything by it. But the impact is undeniable. You feel anxious. You work harder. You modify your behavior to compete for attention that should never have been scarce in the first place. The seventh and perhaps most powerful trick is the creation of what psychologists call a trauma bond. This happens when a pattern of harm, followed by reconciliation, followed by more harm, repeats over time. Here's the cycle. First, there's tension buildup. The manipulator becomes increasingly critical or distant. Then there's an incident, an explosion, a betrayal, a cruel comment. Then comes the reconciliation phase. The manipulator apologizes, promises change, showers you with affection. You feel relief. You feel hope. But the tension inevitably builds again. Each cycle cements the bond. Why? Because the human brain doesn't distinguish between fear and intensity. When you experience relief from fear, your brain releases powerful neurochemicals, the same ones released during bonding. You become psychologically addicted to the cycle itself. You stay because you remember how good the reconciliation felt, not because the baseline of the relationship is healthy. This is why people often ask, why don't they just leave? But it's not about logic. It's about neurochemistry. The relationship has become biochemically rewarding, even though it's psychologically harmful. Now here's the practical part. Understanding these tricks isn't about becoming paranoid. It's about building psychological boundaries. Here are 3 things you can do. First, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate why, that feeling matters. Your intuition is processing thousands of microsignals your conscious mind hasn't registered yet. Second, maintain your external support network. The people who know you well are your reality check. When a manipulator is trying to distort your perception, access to people who know your true self is your defense. And third, notice patterns, not isolated incidents. One cruel comment doesn't define someone. But a pattern of isolation, blame shifting, and intermittent affection is a signal. Patterns reveal intention. Here's the paradox: learning about dark psychology can sometimes make you more cynical. But it shouldn't. Understanding how manipulation works isn't about assuming everyone is manipulative. It's about recognizing that not every kind person is trustworthy, and not every manipulator is obviously harmful. Some of the most dangerous manipulators are incredibly charismatic, intelligent, and charming. The goal isn't to see manipulation everywhere. The goal is to recognize it when it's actually happening, so you can protect yourself and make empowered choices about who deserves your time, your energy, and your trust. If this video helped you understand the psychology behind manipulation a little better, subscribe to Story Mind English because we explore one truth about the human mind every single week in clear, simple English for curious minds everywhere in the world. Understanding yourself is the first step to protecting yourself. And that understanding begins with knowing how your mind actually works. I'll see you in the next one.